Joining us to provide more perspective is Professor Lawrence Abraham from Florida International University. Welcome to In Focus, Professor.
Hi, Vincent. How are you?
I'm very fine. Now, the usual suspects of terrorism are men, young men of Middle Eastern extraction. What does the case of Abdul Muttalib teach the world?
Well, there is no age limit to terrorism. I think that in trying to determine who can be a terrorist and how a terrorist may be recruited, we need to look at three factors. First, we must look at the role of the ethics entrepreneur. By that I mean, of course, those are the imams, the clerics, and so forth, who basically lead folks into acts of terror. We have to look at the issue of finance, and at the same time, we also have to look at the issue of technology, because having said, I mean, when all is said and done, modern technology in itself does help to facilitate, this process.
Now, Professor Abraham, apart from that, you've done extensive research in Africa. Should there be any concern, any serious concern that Africa could become a source of international terrorists?
Well, very much so. Very much so. Particularly in North Africa. And when I say North Africa, that doesn't mean that the rest of the continent is excluded. The radicalization does take place in North Africa, in countries where, now this is documented research, now I'm not saying anything new, where some of the youngsters that are taken to Saudi Arabia, Libya, and even Egypt, are radicalized in those, and now Yemen, of course, although Yemen, we can basically exclude that as part of, the equation now. But the issue is that there is radicalization taking place in, Africa, particularly in the north of Africa.
Now, what's the major challenge in fighting terrorism? We know that now maybe the focus will be looking for men with chemicals and powder perhaps in their bodies. But then is there a possibility that these guys are always ahead of the curve and that we may be looking for the wrong signals?
Yeah, actually, you hit the nail right on the head. Terrorism will occur wherever there is opportunity. Yeah, it's just as simple as that. Wherever the opportunity presents itself, there will be terrorists. The issue, though, is to look at why are these, particularly the youngsters now, which is what my primary emphasis will be on. Why are they driven to such acts of terror? And we've got to look. Emphasis thus far has been on looking at the state, political failures in the states, and the lack of political opportunity structures. All of that is fine, but we also need to look at this is both a political issue as well as an issue of sociology in terms of, relationships, in societies. Both politics and sociology count, but the central issue here is this. The central issue is alienation. Alienation on the part of the individual or the individual concerned will always lead to terrorism. Both political alienation, by that I mean, a lack of, full political participation, and alienation of the individual. Just someone who's particularly antisocial, who is now is actually a prime target for the cleric who's looking to recruit.
Like this kid, of course, who was a privileged kid, though. Oh, we want to thank you very much, Professor Lawrence Abraham. Thanks for taking your time to share with us some of your thoughts. And that is Professor Lawrence Abraham of Florida International University.